Thank you.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. I think most people will be able to hear us now. I'd say good afternoon. Welcome to the StorageCraft QNAP joint session that we do. Mainly a technical broadcast where we want to show you how the integration between the StorageCraft Shadow Protect solution and QNAP, how they integrate and how they work together. The guys that will do the presentation today are Jaap van Kleef. He's one of our pre-sales senior engineers for StorageCraft, and then Ichuan Chang, who's actually like supporting sales and pre-sales in the SADC region, South Africa and the SADC region. I know there's quite a lot of people here from mainly South Africa, because we did set this session up together with Corex, with Cloud9. Yeah, Cloud9 being part of the Corex distribution group. And Cloud9 is actually, from a StorageCraft point of view, our key distributor, the key distributor that we signed up just a couple of months ago. And this is our go-to-market distributor for the SADC region, yeah, South Africa and other South African democratic countries. What I want to point out before I hand it over to Jaap is a couple of things. So number one, from a StorageCraft point of view, together with Cloud9, we will set up every 2 weeks a webinar. Yeah, so starting today, and today is a pretty extended one, but starting today, 2 weeks from now, and every 2 weeks after, on a Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. Central European time, we will do like a 15 to 20 minute product overview. Yeah, so for people that are interested in other parts of the portfolio, you will get like a follow-up email with information on what the schedule is and where you have to sign up for these specific sessions. That's one. Number two, mainly from a StorageCraft point of view, you will see the technology. Some of you on the phone already know the StorageCraft technology, but just as a heads up for you, we organize a full 2-day certification training together with Cloud9 in their offices in Joburg the first week of September. Yeah, so it's going to be a first come, first serve attempt in a sense that we can maximum allow 12 people to join in that session. We got like one of our senior trainers from Ireland fly over to Joburg to provide that training at the Cloud9 premises. Same week, we will do like a 1 full day technical overview. We call it like a technology boot camp with a bit of demos in Cape Town as well. And then 2 last things I want to mention is that for everyone attending this specific call until the end of September, we'll do a dedicated promo on the StorageCraft technology through Cloud9 for all of the partners in the SADC region that sign in this specific call, because obviously we can only do this towards the countries that are covered by Cloud9. And then I don't know whether we have a dedicated slide on that, but you will get like a follow-up email after the session. It will probably come on Monday with like a dedicated white paper where you'll see the information that's being shared in PowerPoint format today. And you will also get like a dedicated link. It's like a joint Cloud9 StorageCraft link where you can sign up to the partner program for the people that are not part of that partner program yet. Yeah, so if you want to do a test on some of our technologies, if you want to get like NFR keys on other things that we sell, you do need to have like access to our partner portal, and that's what the link will be all about. So that's it as general information. Jaap, I'm going to hand it over to you and Ichuan to kind of like share all of the nice things that you have, and I hope that we can trigger a lot of interest in attending this call.
Okay. So thank you, Dominique, for this. So welcome, everyone. As Dominique already mentioned, my name is Jaap van Kleef. I'm based out of the Netherlands. I can understand South African, South Afrikaans, so that always helps when coming to the region. So I'm here to tell you everything about StorageCraft and the technology that we have. What we've done today is we've actually working together with QNAP, because whenever you do backups, everything is very tightly related to storage. Because when you run backups, you need to store them somewhere, and there's different ways of doing that. But there's a couple of benefits of using QNAP. So what we want to do is we're going to hand over to each one from QNAP. So he's going to talk a bit about the QNAP portfolio and the machines that they have, the solutions that they have that can help us. That's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. After that, we're going to come back to me, and then I'm actually going to go into how that all plays together. So I'm actually going to show you an environment. I'm going to go through a couple of slides on what StorageCraft is for those of you who are new to StorageCraft. But then I'm actually going to go into actual products. So I'm going to demo it. I've got a full setup. Thanks to the QNAP colleagues in the Netherlands, I've actually have QNAP demo equipment. So this is actually running on QNAP devices. So I will be showing how this all works together and how you can use this at your customers and on your own premise to help protect your customers, their data not only locally, but also with copies to your data center or to the cloud. But for now, we want to hear a bit more about QNAP. So for that, I want to hand over to each one. So I'm going to do a slide change. I'm going to make him presenter now, which means we can see all the good things about QNAP. So Ichan, over to you.
Hi there, how are you? Hi there, how are you? Anyone can hear me?
Yep, so I can see your screen, so you're ready to go.
All right. Okay. Thank you for having us. Today I'm going to explain some about QNAP and start with some agenda. So QNAP is a company who start from software designing to hardware manufacturing, specialized on NAS storage product. We have a mother company called IEI, which is they are manufacturing automated robot and so on. We have 20 regional offices and 14 countries worldwide, and over 1,000 employees around the world. We are located in different regions around the world, and we are growing up our portfolio, and then we are getting more and more offices around the world as well. So today I'm going to introduce more business feature on the QNAP NAS, which some of these features are benefiting with StorageCraft. Most of our NASs from the SMB range and upward, some model is already built in with 10 gigabit high-speed Ethernet, and some can be optional add-on. With the high-speed Ethernet, you get benefit of high-speed transfer, and especially with a large amount of data need to back up from point to point, our storage device can access with those needs as well. Our new NAS support come with a Thunderbolt 3 option. So some NASs, there's two major models, one rack mount, one desktop model, supports Thunderbolt 3, which offer multimedia solutions for high-speed transfer over 900 megabit per second. With the Thunderbolt 3 is TCP/IP based, so it can be used simultaneously with standard Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet, 10 gig Ethernet, and Thunderbolt 3 at the same time. We also have dual active NAS. So basically, it's active as a controller. Should anything goes wrong, your one controller, the system will automatically take over and reduce any downtime. The functions, the NAS supported OpenZFS, so it's supported using RedZ. What this do is zero compromise on your data. And then the dual controller is hot swappable, so should one controller goes down, you can simply replace with the next one without any downtime. Of course, with lots of data, SSD caching is very important. With our new NAS range, we are introducing more and more of SSD M2 cache SSDs. With this particular enterprise model and NAS, it can take up 6 M2 SSD for fast boost. What SSD do is basically reduce your cost of maximize a full SSD unit and then we also benefit from the high read-write access for the data. Of course, apart from why we need SSD, mainly we are trying to push for virtualized applications. Our NAS is offering virtualization. This virtualization support virtual machine. You can set up virtual machines. It's based on your system hardware you have. So the higher hardware you have, the higher specification hardware, the higher RAM, more RAM you have, you can add, create as much as virtual machines as you need. You can create Windows, Linux, Unix, and Android virtual machine based on your requirement. We, like I said, we have a virtualization. It supports 4-type operating system. The operating system can be used with the NASes with HDMI output and keyboard, so you can directly control without using a third PC to remote login to manage. Of course, VNC is also supported, can be accessed remotely as well. Apart from virtualization, we also have container station. It's a lightweight Linux Docker, so the NAS specification don't need to be high, can run Docker easily with a simple hardware requirement on certain solutions. We introduced Q-tier technology. What Q technology takes SSD drives, takes SAS drive, NL nearline SAS drives, combine all together into 3 different RAID together into one big storage pool. What the storage pool do is that it automatically manage all the data based on a schedule to make sure which section of the data need to go to where. So you maintain the performance of the storage pool to give you boost access. So this is the feature of what you do. By internal, the controller is 12-gigabit SAS controller, so the transfer speed is maintained at high speed when doing the schedule. We offer snapshot technology. Our snapshot have different features. Basically, we have snapshot features within the NAS and out of the NAS. Basically, we can back up snapshot into another location for safekeeping, or increase your storage for snapshot, not only based on the NAS capacity only currently. We offer 6 types of features based on your requirement. Apart from the features we have, one of the features is the snapshot vault, a snapshot replica. What does the 2 option is back up the current snapshot of this volume of this NAS to another NAS into another location around the world or within the same network. So I'm going to just show you a slow diagram how a QNAP NAS integrates with StorageCraft solution. This implementation is quite simple. With virtualization, we can create a Windows machine install image manager. The client PC, client device, and virtual machine can install Shadow Protect SPX. With this, you can back up directly onto the NAS itself. You can control the Windows machine using features called QVPC. I will show a slightly little more on these features later on the next slide. We have different ways of backing up data from a NAS to another NAS with the active RT/RR sync, which is one of the features that we have, and then snapshot replica. And with the image manager, you can back up from FTP to the NAS or to the cloud service that StorageCraft offers. With the virtualization and QVPC technology, this is how the system works. You could basically the guest operating system can be hosted by the virtual machines. With the hybrid desk station, you can connect monitor, keyboard, mouse, and operate directly. Of course, you can access this virtual machine on the NAS using VNC. Then you can control remotely as well. Okay, so that's ending from my side. Thank you, Jeb. You can take over.
Okay, so I will take back. So thank you, Ichan, for this. So while I switch back to my screen, can you confirm you can see my screen again?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. So thanks, Ichan. So it's very good to see the technologies that QNAP has, and that there's a broad range of devices that are ready to use. Basically starting at low-level entry machines that you can use in the small offices all the way up to the enterprise level with all the features and functions that are in there. What we've done for this particular session, and the machine that I've been working with, is the machine that you see on here, which is a TS453A. It's one of the entry models, one of the lower-end models that actually do support virtualization. This comes at a relatively low price, so it makes it affordable even for smaller companies, and it gives you the benefit of having a centralized place to not only store your data, but also manage your backups, store your backups, manage your backups, and potentially replicate them out to a secondary location as well. So what I want to do is I want to quickly introduce some of the StorageCraft technology. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides. So StorageCraft recovery solution, there's actually a number of components in there. Of course, it starts with backup. We need to be able to manage backups. A big part of recovery solution is replication, because too often people are dependent on just a single copy of backup data in the same location as their production data. And then when there is a true disaster, they lose not only their production data, but also their backups. So replication is always should be a big part of any recovery solution. And it's something we can cover with the working together with QNAP as well. When we talk about protection, we talk about protecting both physical, virtual environments. There should be no difference in those on how we protect them. Also integration with cloud. We can either use cloud as a backup target to store a copy of your backup data as well. And in the end, we all do this for recovery. And there's a couple of things. So when we talk about this, when we talk about disaster recovery, and the name sort of suggests this, when we talk about disaster recovery, people go like, okay, so we're protecting against, let's say, true disasters. So it could be fire in the data center, could be flooding, could be maybe theft of a server. All kinds of natural disasters. If we look at presentations that are done in the US, we see things like hurricanes and earthquakes as well. I'm happy to say that, fortunately enough, in the Netherlands, we don't have too many earthquakes or tornadoes. But we are below sea level, so with us, there's still this risk of being flooded. So those are the more, let's say, natural disasters. But in the last couple of years, there's also been other disasters or other threats as well to your environments. And then I'm talking about things like ransomware and viruses. And especially ransomware is becoming bigger and bigger, and a bigger issue in the last couple of months, where we've seen ransomware attacks, for example, in the Netherlands and the UK a couple of months ago, where they had one of the biggest container shipping companies in the Rotterdam port in the Netherlands that was basically out of business for a couple of days because of a ransomware attack, and because they were not able to recover their data and their systems quickly enough to bring them back. So they were actually out of business for, I believe, 4 days, and only after 6 days they were back to normal operations. And as you can imagine, a very large container shipping terminal in Rotterdam, that is not a cost of just a couple of thousand, but that went into the millions of costs for not being able to ship containers, etc. So when we look at the StorageCraft recovery solution, this is going to help you with everything. So everything is focused around recovery. Yes, we do backups, so we need to make backups to take a copy of your data. You want that to be centrally managed for ease of management. Yes, we want to make sure that we got this offsite copy of the data, just in case you do have a true disaster. And then when we talk about the environments, it shouldn't make any difference if you're protecting virtual environments, physical, or maybe even cloud environments, or maybe you want to use cloud for your recovery. So what would a typical environment look like? So you would be looking at an environment with one or more servers, being physical servers, as you can see here, maybe virtualized, and we show Hyper-V and VMware here. But it could be any type of hypervisor, so KVS, Zen, VirtualBox, you name it. We can basically protect any virtual machine running on any of those hypervisors because of our architecture where we install an agent on any of those machines. Even desktops for employees we can protect, and then of course there's the IT admins that do all the admin stuff. So as you can see, we've put the QNAP in the center here, so all our backup data is being stored on the QNAP. We use it as network attached storage as a NAS device, so we create a share. Everything is copied in here. It is managed from the IT admins. So we got a local copy of our storage, and then if we need to do a replication, if we want to get a copy of the data offsite, we have different options. We can use the StorageCraft cloud, where we can store the data, but where you can also even do virtual failovers. So with StorageCraft cloud, you can actually start up a virtual machine directly from the backup data that you've stored in our cloud, and then connect to it remotely using IPsec or OpenVPN. So that actually, even in case of a total disaster, total loss of servers, you could still be up and running with at least your most critical servers literally within 15 to 30 minutes in our cloud. If you're just looking for offsite storage, we also integrate with some of the other cloud vendors. We recently added Amazon Web Storage Services, so S3 storage, as a potential target to store a copy of your data. But what we see a lot with our partners is typically our partners like to offer the secondary copy of the data. Not only because at that point it stays in country, which is in some cases could be pretty important, but also because it's the partner that's normally going to help the customer to recover the data. So what is more convenient than having a copy of the backups of your customer on site with the partner? So if they need to rebuild machines, they have a copy of the backup data ready to go in their own data center, ready to restore your machine. So that is actually something we see quite a lot, where service providers actually provide this storage as a service and even disaster recovery as a service for their customers. So quickly, for those of you that don't know our products, I quickly want to do maybe in 5 to 10 minutes an overview of the different components. So we start with a backup component. So as I said, backup or disaster recovery starts with backup. You need to do a proper backup in order to be able to restore data. And for that, we've got a component called Shadow Protect SPX that provides backup for both physical virtual environments, both Windows and Linux. So if you look at it, it's reliable, it's fast. It's fast because when the way we do backups is we always do volume-based backups, and then we take a full image first, and then after that we only backup change blocks. So that also means we can run backups as frequent as every 15 minutes. As I said, both physical, virtual. We have full integration with VSS, and that means we also have application awareness. So even if those machines are running things like SQL or Exchange, we can back those databases up in a consistent state as well. By the way, if there's any questions, you are muted, but if there's any questions, please use the chat functionality to ask any questions. We are a bit limited in time as I've got a lot of stuff to go through. But if you've got any questions, do ask them via chat, and I will try to answer them during the session. So going back, so we can do, we've got application awareness. As I was mentioning, and that is something that you need to keep in mind, we do protect complete volumes and complete systems. So it's not that you can say, I just want to protect a single folder on this server. Now, if you want to protect data, it is always going to be on a per volume basis. And as I was saying, and that's pretty important, we can do backups as frequent as every 15 minutes. And why is that important? So go back to what I was just talking about, ransomware. So at one point, if traditional, you would be running backups at night, which means you run your backups at, let's say, 2 in the morning. You come back at 8 o'clock and you see your backups are successful. So you've been working a full day. And then suddenly at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, someone opens up the wrong attachment and starts affecting your all the documents on your system. So with traditional backups, you could restore your data, but it would basically mean that everything that you've done between 2 a.m. in the morning and 4 p.m. in the afternoon is going to be lost, because the 2 a.m. backup is my last point that I can restore to. And that means you lose almost a full day of work. So with StorageCraft, we can do those backups as frequent as every 15 minutes. Not saying that you need to protect every machine every 15 minutes. But let's say even if you do once per hour, then in case you know if there's an infection with ransomware or a virus, you can pinpoint the time, and then you can go back to the nearest backup before that. So at that point, it could be maybe just 1 or 2 hours going back. So you lose a lot less of work from your working day. So what does it look like? Like I said, I've got my different machines. I've got my servers, standalone servers, rack-mounted, virtual environments. I install the agent on there, and I can do that basically locally on the machine, or I can also use push install. I will come back to that later on. So you install the agents on the machine. You create your backup jobs. Again, you can do that on a per machine basis, or you can do it centrally. Those backups start running, and they start storing the data, in this case on our NAS device, on our trusted QNAP box, where it's going to store all my backups. So it does the full backup first, and after that, every hour it takes those incremental backups. And then once you've got a disaster, the simple thing you need to do is you just take SPX, you select the point in time you want to recover to, and you just recover the data, being just a volume, but you can also, of course, recover individual files or folders in case someone just did something stupid and deleted a subfolder with some user data. So we're very flexible with that. So that's the first start, where we start running the backups. Of course, we need to manage this because with 1 or 2 machines, it might be pretty straightforward. Once you start going into 5 or 10 machines, it might become a bit more complicated. And also, we want to make sure that we know that our backups are running fine and there's no issues with the backup data. So we've got 2 separate components. They're all part of the same solution, and actually those are both are completely free of charge. So we got Shadow Control, which is our remote monitoring and management. It's a virtual appliance, so you just download an ISO from our website, you install it somewhere on a virtual machine, and then it starts collecting data from all the machines in your environment. It's a web-based console. And through Shadow Control, I can even push out agents, I can push out backup jobs, etc. I can monitor them, I can run reports. And then Image Manager is the part that actually makes sure that all the backup images that we have are safe, are being monitored, are being verified on a regular basis. And also that we start doing things like roll-ups and collapses, because as I was saying, we can do backups as frequent as every 15 minutes, but you don't want to keep all your 15-minute backups for a number of weeks. You probably want to keep them only for 1 or 2 days. And then once you go back further in time, you want less granularity. So from the last week, you only want daily backups. From the last month, you probably only want weekly backups. So that is what Image Manager does. So Image Manager is actually a separate component, needs to run on a dedicated machine. And this is where QNAP again comes in, and we will go into more detail later on. Because of the virtualization capabilities of the QNAP box, we can actually run Image Manager directly on the QNAP system. So that basically takes away the need to add a new or an additional server into the environment. So now you've got your backups, but also the management of your backups on a single piece of hardware, being the QNAP device. And of course, we can do reporting and alerts as well from our backups. So as it looks, we can use the Shadow Control, the manager. We can push out agents. We can push out policies. Once we push out the policies, we can run the backups. Image Manager, Shadow Control can also monitor Image Manager and run send out alerts in case anything goes wrong. So it's a nice add-on to our product once you start managing multiple machines. If you're a service provider and you're managing backup environments for multiple customers, this is actually this allows you to do exactly that as well. So you can actually add all your customers, and you can create different organizational views within Shadow Control as well. So as a service partner, you basically get one web page where you can see the status of the backup systems of all your customers in one view, and that can save you a lot of time. And we were talking about replication. So getting data offsite is a critical part of the of any disaster recovery solution. You can do that through replication over the wire, or you can even use USB drives to create a copy of your backup data and import them. That's basically all done by Image Manager, potentially in combination with cloud services. So Image Manager can replicate data just to offsite storage. So just get a copy of your backup data. Offsite disaster recovery, so we copy it offsite and we allow you to spin up machines there, or we can use the StorageCraft cloud where everything is pre-configured and ready to go. So as a partner, there's nothing to configure for you. So we've got this purpose-built cloud for disaster recovery. We can always do file and folder recovery. We can virtualize entire machines. We can even virtualize multiple machines in one go. Also in cloud services. When we talk about cloud services, we can also pre-configure any networking. The last thing you want to do when there's a disaster is you want to run around trying to figure out how to connect to the servers in the cloud and how your users can access their emails, which are on those servers in the cloud. So that's something you can all pre-configure, and I will go into a bit more detail later on. And it's all self-service. It's basically a web interface you log on to, and from there you can manage everything. So I was already talking about this. So we've got the QNAP that holds the backup devices or the backup data, and then depending on where you want to replicate, you can replicate to the cloud, to the StorageCraft cloud, replicate to third-party cloud, or replicate to your data center to help your customers have a local copy of your data. And that's all done by the Image Manager component being installed on the QNAP itself. And then, of course, recovery. We have multiple ways of recovering data. We can do bare metal recoveries. We can do hardware independent restores. So that means you can go from an HP to a Dell server, but you can also go from physical to virtual, virtual to physical, even virtual to virtual. So, for example, you could be running on VMware and you want to restore to Hyper-V or vice versa. That's also something we can do. One of the things we see with restores is sometimes they take quite a lot of time. So if you've got 500 gigs of data and you need to restore a server, copying 500 gigabytes of data can take a couple of hours easily. And all that time you're waiting until your system comes online. And all that time you're not productive. So what we can do with StorageCraft, we also have an option called Virtual Boot. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to spin up a virtual machine directly from the backup data. And we can do that in Hyper-V, VMware, or VirtualBox. So that basically takes away that whole waiting time for the machine, for the restore to complete. This actually means you have access to your data literally within 10 to 15 minutes after you initiated the restore. For example, if you're using VMware, you have the option to say, I just want to spin up the machine for test, just see if it runs. Or you can say, no, this is a true disaster. Spin up the machine. The big difference is if you do it as a test, it's not going to copy any other data. If you say, no, this is a true disaster, I'm going to be running this virtual machine for a longer period of time, it will actually start copying the data back to that VM, which, by the way, could also be a nice migration tool. And I'm not saying that we want to advertise this as a migration solution, but if you have to migrate one or two servers, this could be a great way to do that as well. And then, of course, we can do full system recoveries, file folder recoveries. If we talk about Exchange, we can do individual mailboxes, attachments, emails, etc. as well. So I've spoken briefly about this. So hardware independent restore. So we've been running our backups. Could be a server with iSCSI disk, PCI, dual CPU. There is an issue with the box. So what we do is you download the emergency disk, the recovery disk from our website that you can use to boot the machine. So you boot the machine with that image. You connect it to our storage, and then you recover the data. And the technology inside our solutions is actually capable of managing all these changes. So it will make the necessary changes to the OS, and then you will be able to start that same server on your new hardware. Oh, that was not what I intended to do. And as I was saying, virtual boot, you run your backups. The backups are being stored there. If you want to run a test of your backups, you can actually use the virtual boot process, and that runs straight from the backup data inside your hypervisor. So very cool feature as well. So basically, what we talk about with StorageCraft is it's not just about backup, it's all about recovery. That's why you do the backups, and that's why we want to make your life as easy as possible. So enough about PowerPoint slides. You probably want to see how this works in real life. So what I'll do is, what I'll show you is I've got a demo environment with a couple of machines. So I've got a domain controller and I've got 2 test servers as well. So let me just go to my first test server. So this test server, so this has actually StorageCraft SPX, so Shadow Protect SPX installed. And this has been running backups today. It's also been running backups for the last couple of days. This is the interface that you see. So in this one, we're actually managing it locally. So I can see my policy. If I just go into my backup job and do edit job, I can see it's protecting all of my volumes. I can see the amount of data. My destination is my QNAP device, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail later on. The schedule is it's running backups every 15 minutes from 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock in the evening. There's a couple of advanced features. Probably the most important thing is because I'm writing to a network share, I do want to do some write caching that gives me a better performance. So this job has been running, like I said, it's been scheduled to run every 15 minutes. And as you can see in the interface, it's been doing that ever since. So every small green dash here basically means we've taken a backup, so I can click on that backup. So for example, at 2 o'clock today, we've been taking a backup. So let's say I did something stupid at after 2 o'clock, so I just want to recover a single file or folder. So what I can do from here is I can very easily just select my backup point at 2 o'clock. I know the data was in my repository, so I just go to Mount Image. And the only thing I do is I click on Mount Image. Because all my backups are password protected, I just enter my password. I click OK. It asks me, do I want to mount it? Yes, let's mount it as a drive letter F. Read only or read write. So read only is fine for now. The mounting literally takes about 10 seconds or even less. And as you can see, it now created an F drive, which is basically a point-in-time representation of that drive. So if there's any information on there, I can actually just go in there. I can go into test. I can find any file I want. I can copy and paste it. So if you need to recover individual files and folders, that is very straightforward. So let me just get rid of this. Let me just delete all the mount points that I've created. So I want to dismount those 2 points. So I go to that's ready. So let's say I've done something a bit more stupid. So I actually want to recover the complete volume. So this is what I do with the next button. So I go restore volume. So this is what you could also do. You know you've been hit with your ransomware attack. You know my last backup was, let's say, yesterday. So I go back here. So it says, okay, which volume do I want to restore? No, it was my data volume. Yep, that's fine. Yes, do I want to restore my volume? No, I actually don't want to do this one. I actually want to go back to, let's see if I can do that, if I can go back to yesterday. So I want to go back to yesterday. So yeah, actually that's working. And I want to go back to a point in time, let's say 9:30. So I know my infection was at 9:30. So I actually go back to 9:30 yesterday. So I select 9:30 yesterday, and I'm going to restore from this point. So nothing changes here. So I enter my password. And I want to do my R drive, that's fine. Am I sure? Yes. And this is going to copy the data. So we leave this running for the time. This is going to take a couple of minutes to complete. Should be pretty fast. But we're not going to wait until, so you can see 1%, it's actually running 2%. So while this is running, I actually want to show you a couple of other things. So as you can see, I've got multiple systems. So I've got a second server. We can do remote management as well. So remote monitor, I could actually add those machines in here. So I could very quickly switch between one machine or the other. But as I was mentioning, we also have shadow control. So what I've done here is shadow control. I want to not go here. So I want to go to shadow control. So shadow control is our centralized appliance that can monitor the different machines. So in this case, I've added my 2 servers. If I go to endpoint, I can see I've got my 2 test machines. I also have my image manager, which we'll go to in a bit detail. So I can see I've got my test machine here. I can see the volumes. I can even start or run a job from here as well. This can also run reports. If I go to reports, I can view reports, and reports will look something like this. So it will tell me something about the status of every Shadow Protect agent. It will tell me the status of all my image managers. Tells me about Shadow Control itself. Now the good thing is, as partner, you can actually tweak this so you can have your own company logo in there. And we can also send this to your customers automatically. So this is actually pretty cool. So this means you can schedule this. So this report runs every day or every week. It tells you everything about the backup. If backups were successful, it tells me even how much storage I'm using, make some predictions, and you can then automatically send this to each one of your customers automatically. So that's pretty cool. There's a couple of other things that we can do in here as well. So we can run updates from here. We can push out agents from here. So I can do things like push installs, where I can do managed endpoints. So for example, if I go here, I can see all my machines. And I can say, okay, if there's an update on Shadow Protect, I just clicked on SPX, and it basically says, okay, yes, I selected, I want to update, but you know what, they're all up to date. But I cannot select them. If there would have been a new version of Shadow Protect, I would actually be able to select the machine, and I can push out my updates straight from this interface. And again, you can install this at your own data center, connect to all the machines at your different customers, and actually manage everything through this console. So let's see. It looks like if I go back to my test 1, yeah, my restore was successful. And let's just verify. It hasn't mounted the drive yet, so we have to wait a couple of seconds or refresh. And if all goes well, this normally takes a couple of seconds before this completes. But once this completes, we should be able to see that volume again. So we give it another 1 or 2 minutes to mount, and then we should be able to see that R volume again, with some changes I've made yesterday morning, just after 9:30 or just before 9:30. So the word image manager has been mentioned a couple of times. So first, before I go there, so my backup destination is my QNAP. So I've created a destination. If I edit it, you can actually see my network path. So it's using a network path. It's going to the QNAP. I've created a share called StorageCraft Backups, and this is where everything is stored. One of the things I've done is actually a hidden share. So normally from the Windows machine, you wouldn't see it. Again, this is an additional protection against things like ransomware, because ransomware becomes smarter and smarter. So if it would have been a visible share, it might be infected. By creating a hidden share, we just throw up an additional barrier for the ransomware people to start attacking our data. So when we go to the QNAP, so let me just quickly go to the QNAP interface, and I've got it up and running here. So if I log in, so this is my QNAP, my 453A, and one of the key things in here is virtualization station. So first, let me just quickly go to Storage Manager. So if I go to Storage Manager, I can see there's 4 drives. There is a volume for backups. So if I go to my storage space, I can actually see, yes, there's my backups, there's my data, etc. One of the things I've done for my backups is there's actually also, it's keeping 7 snapshots. So you might wonder, why do you want to keep snapshots? So one thing to keep in mind with the snapshots from a QNAP is they're immutable. So that means once a snapshot is taken, data in that snapshot cannot be changed. So again, even if I've got a smart enough malware attack or ransomware attack that might even be able to get to my backup data, it might corrupt the backup data that is currently visible, but it won't be able to touch any of the data in the snapshots. So this is actually another safeguard when we talk about protection against ransomware, to go back in time and to go back to your data. So I've got my backups. And in there is actually that hidden folder for my backup. So if I go to, for example, if I go to, I want to go to File Station. If I go to File Station, you will not see, so you will see backups, but you will not see my StorageCraft SC backups. So this is another one. This one is visible. So you actually have to log in with backup admin credentials to be able to see that folder. Again, another safeguard just to make life for the ransomware people a bit more difficult. Now, as I was mentioning, we need, when we take the backups are stored, and then in order to process the data, we need Image Manager. And Image Manager needs a dedicated machine, and this is what we use Virtualization Station for. So this is actually a 453A with 8 gigs of memory. So if I open up Virtualization Station, what I've done here is I've actually installed Virtualization Station, and I've created a virtual machine on the QNAP, and that virtual machine is actually running Image Manager. And as you can see, I've created it with 2 cores. I've created it with 4 gigs of memory. It's actually using only about 50% of that. From a performance perspective, it only uses a couple of percent of CPU. So this is perfect. So this runs nicely on the background. It's not impacting the day-to-day performance. Also keeping in mind that any processing of most of the processing of the data that Image Manager does is at nighttime. So it wouldn't affect your day-to-day business. So let me quickly connect to that machine. I'm going to do that through a remote desktop session. So I've connected to my Image Manager. So this is where I can actually see my data. So I should be able to see what I can do here is I can do SC backups, my backups, and through here I've accessed it before, so it is, remember the credentials. I can see both my servers, and I can see the backup data for all these servers. So I can see my incremental backups, and as you can see, for every incremental backup, for every backup that we take, we create an MD5 hash. But you will also see things like consolidated files. So you will see things like a consolidated daily file, consolidated weekly files, even consolidated monthly files. So this is done by the actual Image Manager process that goes through the backups, re-verifies the data, and that's what you see here. So I've actually created a managed folder. It has detected my 2 servers, and as you can see, there's different tabs for verification of the data, consolidation, retention, and then there's replication. So I actually have 2 replication jobs here. I've got 1 replication job going to an internal FTP server, and I've got a second one that goes out to my StorageCraft cloud. FTP is pretty straightforward. It can replicate to any FTP server. So when we replicate, we now have different options. We can use the QNAP replication. So you just have 2 QNAP boxes, and you just set up replication between the 2 QNAPs. Doesn't require any additional configuration, doesn't require anything additional to add to the QNAPs. Or you take a second QNAP, you enable the FTP services on the second QNAP, and you use Image Manager replication. And this is a good thing. While we are waiting, you can actually see it has just finished doing a backup job, and it's actually now running a verification as soon as the data comes in, just to make sure that whatever data we have is completely usable. So I can replicate to FTP, or I can replicate to the cloud. So I've only done that for my first test machine. The second one, I've just decided a local, it's just a test machine. I just want to keep my local copy. So again, this is running on the QNAP, so no additional storage, no additional devices needed here. As I was saying, so this actually replicates to the StorageCraft cloud. So I actually go to my cloud portal. I just need to log in here. So every partner, every StorageCraft partner will get their credentials for this. So in this case, I'll just log in using my own credentials. This takes a couple of seconds. I go to Cloud Services, and then I can see my QNAP Cloud account. And in there, I can see my test server. So I go to QNAP Cloud, and remember I was talking about pre-configuring networking. That is something you can do here. So you can set up the subnet. You can set up IPsec or OpenVPN upfront. You can assign public IP addresses to this. You can actually pre-assign IP addresses to machines as well. You can do things like port mappings. So if there's specific applications that need port mapping, you can do that. So if you've got multiple machines, you can even create policies that say, oh, I've got a domain controller and an Exchange server. I need to bring those up. So you just create a policy that says, bring up my domain controller, wait for 2 minutes so it actually has time to start up and get everything sorted. And then after 2 minutes, bring up my Exchange server. So it's fully flexible there as well. And with, you can see I've got my test server here. I can see when it has the last image that was converted. That was from 3:31, so about 20 minutes ago. My last recovery point available, because it takes a bit of time to actually convert the last one to a recovery point, was actually from today at about 1:30. And what I can do here is, let's say this is a critical machine, I need some data. I can either just go in and I can go to my pointing and say, you know what, I just want to mount it. Provide a password, I click on mount. This takes a couple of seconds. And now I can actually browse through that folder. So I can see the same folders. As you can see, I can go to my repository, I can go to test, and I can see all the files that are there. I select them, I say create zip file, and then I can then download that zip file, and I've got a copy of my my files back in my office. And as I was saying, I can also do launch VM. And if I click launch VM, again, I need to provide my password. If it's a test, I can say I just want to test, leave it for 2 days and then delete it, or I can do a real failover. The other big difference between test and failover is if we do real failover, of course it will not destroy the machine. It will actually also start backing up the machine. So you'll be storing data on that machine, and we will actually back it up. And then if you request a BMR drive, we will actually capture all those changes and send them back to you. So if I click on virtualize, this is actually going to take about 2 minutes. So it's creating the network. It's doing a couple of other things in the background. The days left in here means when you set this up, you basically you pay an amount per server per month. In order to prevent people from using this as extra compute power and leave the machines running for 365 days a year, we say, okay, this is normally what you use for disaster recovery. We don't expect any disasters to take longer than 30 days. So on average, we give you 30 days. So out of the 30 days that are included in the monthly fee, there's 20 left. And so I can still run this machine for 20 more days. Now we're not going to cut you off if you go over the 20 days. We will come back to you and say, hey, we've seen that you've been running for more than 30 days. Was that a mistake? Do you need to use this machine? But there might be a charge once you start using it for more than 30 days. What else is there to show? So if I quickly go back, so I've also been replicating to what was it? An FTP server. So if I quickly connect to that FTP server, and that was machine 81. So I just connect to that one. I do that in the background so you don't see all that stuff. So this is actually my other machine that I've been replicating to. So this is on-premise, or this could be with a partner. And what's happening here, so I'm actually replicating. I'm just going to show you quickly. So I'm replicating. I've got a data folder, replicating using FTP, and I've got a backup of an FTP, of a domain controller and a file server. And I've actually also have, as you just saw, an FTP replication of my test1 server. So if I go in here, I actually see the same types of data as I saw on my QNAP. These have been replicated using Image Manager, using FTP. This machine also runs Hyper-V. So let me just quickly check if there's no machines running. No, there's no machines running. So one of the things I can do, so I've got a copy of my backup data sitting on this machine. So I basically can install, I've actually running Image Manager here as well. That basically gives me the ability to run different retentions. There's no, you don't have to run an image manager, but it allows you to do different retentions. I also have a copy of SPX running. This one is actually not licensed. Let me just check if that's the right one. No, that's not one. So let me just, I actually need to create, so this is FTP backup test 1. So let me just create a new destination, add a destination. It is local. So this is test 1. I can just browse for it. So I just go to my data folder, FTP backup test 1, select. So I add this as a destination. So that is all in there now. And now I can do something. Remember, I've mentioned virtual boot. So this is actually something I can do now on my disaster recovery machine. So on this server, which is running Hyper-V, I just click on virtual boot. So the first thing it says, okay, which image file do you want to use for this? So I actually can go to my destinations. So I can go to my test1 destination, and it will actually show me. It takes a couple of seconds. And then it says, okay, so it has all my recovery points. So I want to go back to this particular one. I select that one. Again, I need to provide a password to overcome the encryption. So it's actually now reading the information, what's in the files, what data is in there. This machine is not the fastest machine, so it takes a couple of seconds while it's going through the different images that we've stored. And it says, yeah, I found in that point in time, I found 3 different volumes. This is the one that's actually going to be booting from. So I actually say, that's fine. That's my boot volume. I click on next. It sees that it's installed on a machine running Hyper-V. So Hyper-V is selected. I click on next. I do the machine name, virtual boot, test 1. I can specify the number of CPUs. I can specify the amount of memory, 1024. I don't want to start the machine automatically, although I can. And I just click on create. And this is now going to create a copy of that test1 machine, which was a VMware machine, now as a Hyper-V machine on this second server, ready to go as soon as I press start. And again, this is going to take about 5 to 10 minutes. I see we're almost at the end of our session, so unfortunately I cannot show you the result. So you have to trust me for this, that this will actually create the machine, and you will be able to run the machine. But more important, you can test this for yourself as well, because you can always download trial versions. If you sign up as a partner, you can also download, you can get NFR keys as well. So you can play around with this software. So we're going to leave this for now. Another session has ended. I don't know why it has ended. So with that, I'm actually coming to the end of my session. So I want to thank you for your time. Like I said, this is the first, as Dominique was already mentioning, this is the first of a couple. This one was actually focusing around the work we do together with QNAP. Being that with QNAP we have this functionality of virtualization, and it can basically help you to bring a solution to your customers without having to add multiple servers, multiple devices, multiple things to manage. In this case, using StorageCraft software and QNAP with virtualization, with the snapshot technologies that they have and potentially replication, we can build a complete solution that will help protect your data and the data from your customers in a very effective way. So for that, I'm now at the end of my session. I'm going to stick around for just a couple more minutes in case there's any questions. You can ask them through chat or just reach out to your distie or to any of us if you've got any questions over email, and we will try to answer them. As Dominique was saying, we will be sending out a copy of the slide deck, both from StorageCraft and QNAP, as well as the white paper, and that's probably something I just want to show very briefly, and then we're going to come to an end of this. So this is actually the document that we've created. So it's basically it's focusing around protecting against ransomware. So you can send this to your customers and say, okay, if you want to protect against ransomware, we've got a complete solution. It's fully documented. It's fully supported. This is how it works together. So it says it's taking SPX, it's taking QNAP device, and then it's actually taking you with all screenshots of every step of the way, where you can, what you need to do. So create a share on the QNAP, create a virtual machine on QNAP, install Image Manager, install SPX. So it goes through all of these steps. And I actually say even my mother-in-law could use this and install a working disaster recovery solution using this document. So I'm pretty sure that with all the IT professionals on this call, this is a breeze. It takes 20 to 30 minutes to go through this document and set everything up. So we will be sending this out as well. As Dominique was mentioning, maybe tomorrow, if not on Monday. So you will have that documentation as well, and there's going to be more to follow. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. It's been an hour. I've been doing a lot of talking. There's a lot of information, but I've seen most of you are still there. So again, thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention. Hope to speak to some of you in the near future face to face when I get a chance to come to the lovely South Africa. So thanks for your time, and speak to you next time.